All right, I think we're about 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right, 7:02. Lonnie's not on yet, so I say we begin the meeting and just wait for him to arrive so we can just continue on with the agenda. But before that, I do have an introduction to this remote meeting. This open meeting of the Mendon Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's updated guidance on holding meetings pursuant to the act extending certain COVID-19 measures that was signed into law on June 16, 2021. This act includes an extension until March 31st, 2023 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remote so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Mendon Board of Health is convening by video and telephone conference, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. This meeting will feature public comment. Again, the time is now 7:03, and with that said, I hand it over to the chairman of the board, Alan Greenberg.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. I see Lonnie is now on. So let's take item number one, the snack shack at Memorial Field, the tight tank. Lonnie, you're up.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I also, Dan Byer sent me an email. So this kind of all goes together. He had reached out to Allen Engineering to get a quote for perk testing to maybe do a full leaching field at that area of the field. He's saying it could possibly serve the beach and the Lowell Shack. I don't know how it would serve the beach, but maybe they have a pump in mind or something like that.
It would have to be pumped, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's definitely either that or it's going to have to be really deep. So he hasn't heard anything back from Allen Engineering yet. However, given that may take some time to get done, the original thought was looking at a possible tight tank for that snack shack that's over in the softball field, closest to the Taft Ave side. I think it's called the Lowell Snack Shack. And right now they do have water there, but they don't have a sink or anything like that because there's no tank. So the amount of use that it actually gets, we're thinking that the tight tank might be the better way to go. And if they do end up pushing the leaching field in down the road, I'm assuming we can get a tight tank that can be turned into, you can open it up to a leaching field if need be. If we were to go that road, I just didn't know the proper way for us to do this as a town. Should we use our town engineer that the Board of Health has to design this for us? Or should we use an outside firm and have it peer reviewed by the town engineer? If I was to go and ask for a septic upgrade or a new septic for my house. I just didn't know what the process was, where it was town-owned property, and we have a town engineer.
Can I ask you a question, Lonnie, first? Is it a seasonal thing that this area, is this a seasonal, only seasonal?
Yeah, so both snack shacks are generally open spring to fall. Obviously, there's no ball games in the winter, so right. I believe they open on what is considered opening day for baseball and softball, and then they're open, again, very limited throughout the season, only when there's a decent sized game going on. If it's a small game, sometimes they don't even open.
Is there a bathroom there?
Well, there's bathrooms not in the facility, but there's bathrooms in the field up past the pavilion. Up in the wooded area, in between the fields that fall behind Imperial, and so the bathroom building is there, but that's a full set bathroom with stalls and sinks, and that has its own septic.
Okay, so it would seem to me then, if this is only going to be used for liquid water use there for washing hands and doing stuff like that you wouldn't need anything but a tight tank.
Right, there's no friolators, there's no nothing that would even require a grease trap. There's not any type of they make popcorn, they may make walking tacos in a call them walking tacos in a crock pot. But again, nothing, no
Right.
heavy duty lifting.
Right, so they would be able to wash their dishes and wash their hands, and, I mean, it would seem to me that a septic system would be overkill for that type of thing, in my opinion.
We'll also be putting in, they'll be adding the sinks and a hot water tank and things of that nature too, to make it. so-
Correct, right, but it would only be seasonal, but it's just used for, hand washing and washing of their equipment.
Correct.
Alan?
Yes, it sounds pretty simple to me, especially where it's only gray water. I would see if one of the engineers that does a lot of work in town, possibly Shea Engineering or something like that, might help us out. It doesn't sound like a very complicated thing. Maybe they could help us out and give us what we need so that the town can put a tight tank in there. Probably only has to be emptied once a season. I mean,
Yeah,
if it's,
Right.
1,000, 1,500 gallons.
all right.
So, it shouldn't
It
be,
may, it may well be a 2,000 tight tank, 2,000 gallon tight tank.
okay, yeah. So, I mean,
I think that
yeah,
maybe
end of the season, one
Right.
emptying. So it should be,
exactly,
minimal expense.
right,
Our town engineer, because he's only part-time, I don't know if you could get him because of time constraints, to design something like that for us.
right,
He does have a full-time job, along with, representing us on a part-time basis. So, I would, reach out to any of the engineers that seem to pick up a lot of systems and stuff in town, and see if they might help us out.
yeah,
Obviously, it's not a huge time constraint to get it done. So, maybe, they might do us a favor.
yeah,
it's,
and since it,
for the
yeah,
ball
since it
field.
wouldn't have to be in until the spring, as you said, then, and the winter is sometimes a slow time, and, with the engineering people, but, and I think that that's a good thought.
Tom?
Hey, Lonnie. I was under the impression that the baseball snack shack did cook in there. Was I incorrect on that?
I don't know what's in the baseball snack shack, but that already has a septic with a leaching field. That one's already pre-existing, so I don't know what's going on over there. This was just the other snack shack has nothing. So that's why I was trying to help out with that.
Oh, it's just on the softball side only.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess the question might be, do you know if they'd ever consider, because I know you're right now, at least as far as I remember, it was basically packaged food, but would they ever consider wanting to cook out of that snack shack?
At this point, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, unless it was maybe something with like cheeseburgers or something like that, but they usually, like the baseball folks don't cook that inside the shack. They bring a grill and they
Okay.
cook outside.
Yep.
So nothing goes into the
Right,
system for that. They're using all disposable equipment. Nothing really, they use the aluminum pans for the service. So if they were to cook again, it would be in that aspect. Again, if they wanted to add fryolators and get silly and really do something inside like they do in Marlboro, well, then we're talking probably a revamp of the entire snack shack. And I mean, the one in Marlboro, they have a whole line with fryolators, with the grill, and they've got a big hood. It's a full-fledged restaurant almost. They've got breakfast sandwiches. They've got all this stuff.
yeah,
So-
and let's not talk too loudly about that. We don't want our people to know that stuff. You know what I mean?
Heck, the last time I was there, I said, let's come back tomorrow morning for breakfast up here. It's like $2 for a sandwich.
Well, I know a guy who can make some pretty good breakfast sandwiches. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, my only thought was if they were thinking that way, would we want to prep for any kind of grease trap type of thing, or incorporate that aspect into it? But if that's the case, yeah, keep it simple, keep it basic.
No, I think if anything, it's just going to make what they have for service now better because they have the ability. If they're taking everything home with them and washing it, at home and then bringing it back and where they can leave it out there. So, yep, that's all I had on that. I will, because Dan has already talked to Allen Engineering. I'll probably just have him reach back out to them to help design that. Like I said, we'll prepare it with a tight tank that could go to a leaching field if they decide to add that piece from the beach to pump it up. So we'll figure that out.
Cool.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it would be definitely good for hand washing for sure. You know, I hate to think of them preparing food and stuff without having a hand washing ability there.
Right. Yeah.
That's the
Well,
nurse talking.
I know in the past, I believe it was Willowbrook at one of the town field functions actually used a water cooler and soap, etc.,
Right,
so that they could accomplish that. I'm sure that these people at the snack shack are using, some form
something,
of wipe,
yes,
yeah,
something, but,
gloves, wipes,
it's just
hand
nice, it's
sanitizer.
nice to be able to have.
Well,
a
yeah, especially when now
facility.
they'll have
Right,
water heater and they can use hot water.
right,
So, yeah, that would definitely be a welcomed amenity for them, I'm sure.
right, yeah,
And it sounds like something that can be done relatively simple, and they have a little bit of time to work on it before they need to get it constructed first thing in the spring.
right.
All right, I'm gonna say any other discussion on this issue before we move on? All right, let's go to Jack. Let's go to Lake Nipmuc updates, please.
Okay, Lake Nipmuc updates. Have any of you been able to review that presentation that was presented last year to the Concom committee?
Yes, I did.
You want to expand more on that? What you thought?
Well, I mean, I was wicked impressed with all of the things that they were talking about. And it's to me, I think it's a great. I have the books here that I went through, which was all part of the presentation, and it's very clear what they're talking about and what they want to do and what they have done and how they did it. And they found all the different growths in the inlets, and it was really interesting, especially for me now thinking about being on the lake, trying to think about how we're going to keep the lake clean, so I thought it was very interesting.
Tom Allen, have you been able to view the presentation at all?
Unfortunately, I have not.
I have to echo that. Unfortunately, I dropped the ball and I have totally forgot about that whole part of the conversation. I apologize.
No, it's all right.
That one got by me.
Joyce, you get the gold star there, dear.
Okay, well, I'm obedient. Don't tell my husband that.
I was gonna say, yeah.
All right, so
Well,
again,
I mean, I think because of it was really prevalent in my mind because of trying to get something done around the lake with the new committee that we're trying to establish. So I thought that would help with that. So and we're sort of working on that at the same time.
But would the idea be to take from that presentation something to use as a baseline to apply moving forward, incorporating the new panel? Is that?
Well, what they talked about was not how to fix it, but what was happening there. I mean,
Yeah.
what they had there, what they had all different growths and stuff like that they were talking about, and they did talk about how it can be remediated. So that's a good thing, to know and stuff. And it's in these books too, if you read it, and you can see where they went around. I went around in this one here.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
it was really good. And it was all about that. They talked about it. And I sort of used the book as I was listening to what they were talking about. And they talked about some of the areas that had leakage from septic systems, and so that that's why the E. coli, and it was really interesting. I thought it was interesting.
Did they touch on the aspect of stormwater contamination?
Yes, yeah, they talked about the stormwater influx, and there were 3 areas of where they have stormwater coming down through, but they didn't talk about remediation for that.
Right.
A lot of it was explaining where the problem areas were, and inlets and that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Joyce, where did you get the literature?
The
The literature is,
came in a package we got a couple of weeks ago, I think. Jack, didn't you give it to us in a package last week?
no, as you as a new Board of Health member, I prepped it for you,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's part of the links, and part of that email is the presentation and the links for those presentation manuals.
Right,
Gotcha. Thank you.
yeah.
But I'll
And
be more than, I would be more than happy to print them off for you and Tom for a review.
I would appreciate that. That might help me remember to listen to the conference.
The other thing about the lake, just to give you an upgrade, I ended up talking to Wayne Phipps, and he's interested in being on that panel too. So I thought that was good to have the Lake Association be working with us at the same time as we're trying to figure out things.
oh
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I did talk to Kim about grants for different things and that sort of thing. And I suggested that she would be the person that would be investigating that.
Yeah.
However, I'm not quite sure how that went.
What else was I thought I had? Did you have any, out of curiosity, any luck with contact with DEP? I know
No.
you're gonna, no?
No, I've left messages for David Boyer 3
Yeah.
different times. Yeah,
Really?
nothing.
Oh,
No.
okay.
But the other thing I also did, I called Worcester Polytech,
Yeah.
and I went to the environmental engineering department and left a message for that person, because I went to Harvard and did my environmental engineering stuff, and they were always like, I did it in the graduate school, and it was a new program back, as my kids say, was that back in the day? Yeah, back in the day, that was really the beginning of that kind of a program. So you didn't do a lot of, didn't have a lot of people in it and stuff. But I thought that, Worcester Polytech might have a group of people that were, in that environmental engineering program, which is now huge, and maybe they would be interested in having the kids come out and do stuff and test water and, do dye testing and stuff like that as part of their, curriculum. But I didn't hear anything back from there yet either. So.
Well, I know in the concept of the dye testing, I guess we'll have to figure out a plan of attack or a plan of action as to how we want to go about implementing that.
Right. Well, I
Right.
think one step at a time, I think that, first of all, we just have to figure out what's happening there, and who's who in the scheme of things. So.
I mean, in terms of at DEP mean or?
No, around the lake,
Okay. Well, we have a pretty good mapping, I think now of, and I
Right.
think it's complete as far as who has what in terms of the breakdown for systems and
right,
what the makeup of the properties are. Right, Jack? That's accurate,
Correct.
right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So that being the case, if we have an actual map and we know what's what, and we are looking at doing a validation here to see or to confirm that all the systems are functional that border the water,
Right,
sounds like to me, it's a matter of looking to start the process possibly of a notification of some kind or implementation for dye testing,
right.
right?
And yeah, I agree, you know, and I thought that we would discuss that at that, you know, when we get our panel together to.
Gotcha, okay,
All that stuff, yeah.
yeah. So as it stands now, from a panel perspective, we have, well, you mentioned Wayne, and who
Yeah.
else did we have?
And we have, oh, please, help me with those names, the two, people from, one of them is the guy that did this program. What was his name in here? Let's see. Oh, please, from ESS Group. I think that guy was on there just as a talking point person. And was it Danielle, Jack?
It was Gabrielle. She's the
Oh,
storm.
Gabrielle, right. And Danny, I didn't say Danny, Dan Byer, because he's on the park department, and Wayne, because he's part of the Lake Association, and right now me. And I also have in my bailiwick a couple of people who do septic repairs and stuff like that too, that can't work directly with us, but will be able to have conversations with at some point.
How big do we want this panel to be?
Just that big, not big, because the more is not the merrier. in my
Right.
experience.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
I would,
I think just the six of us right there will work, you know.
okay,
yeah, I would rather have a second event than confuse people by having the panel that's gonna speak be too large.
Right, exactly.
Because I want everybody that attends this, we'll call it a joint conference between the Lake Association and the Board of Health. I want everybody that attends this conference to get as much out of it as possible. So I would be open to doing it more than once if we
Right,
had
but
to.
we were going to talk not with the Lake Association, just with Wayne Phipps. Just have him on as a collaborator. You know,
Correct, but
But
I'm hoping-
deal about,
right, I'm hoping that members of the Lake Association will dial in or show up to this conference.
yeah, this would be, are we desiring to make this an in-person type of an event versus a call, or?
I'd like to see it have both capacity, in person and the ability for the public to dial in.
Do it as a hybrid, right?
Yeah,
I'm thinking at least for the first time, it would be kind of nice to see the faces,
right,
kind of have that face-to-face type of thing,
right.
at least the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
how many
we're
discussions.
We're working on getting that group together and talking about it. And, you know, figuring out when we're gonna do it. And when
Have we
everybody-
had any success in connecting with conservation?
Well, you know, I think conservation would be a good person to have on there too.
Mhm.
You know, because the lake is all about conservation. Right? But I just didn't put anything out yet to say who would like to do that on your board.
I mean, I think it would be kind of nice to round it, to have a person from,
Absolutely, absolutely.
to kind of, you know, step up and be part of that panel. I mean, I think it just kind of rounds out the
Yep,
the
I agree.
involvement.
I just haven't got quite there yet.
Sure, yeah, okay, yeah. Cool, awesome.
anything else on the Lake Nipmuc updates?
No.
The only thing I would add, just to keep in everybody's forefront, and this is really something to consider going into next spring prior to the summer, but I do want to make sure that we are ready to implement the more involved testing that we've talked about, I kind of want to make sure that we hit the ground running when that time comes. I know it's only October. But I just want to make sure that we're all ready and on board for right from the get-go to start in with a more
Aggressive.
more well-rounded testing plan that we kind of go with for the season, for the year.
Joyce, do we have anybody from a testing lab that's willing to come to that and be part of that panel?
I haven't talked to them of that, but I did talk to Wayne about, they do quite a bit of testing, the Lake Association does. So they're using a different lab, but it wasn't a lab that was, I don't know whether it was not sanctioned or they just, I don't know, but we were talking about that because it would be great to collaborate.
Yeah, I thought the lab that they're using now is state certified because we've had this discussion in the past. And the reason that I'm asking that is I believe we discussed it before, having someone from a lab that can determine results and explain the different tests as part of the panel, whether it be the first time we do this or the second time we do it.
Right,
But based on what Tom just reminded us of, it would be nice to start building a relationship with a lab that we're going to entertain giving the contract to do this testing in the spring.
Right.
Because we obviously, spring will come quick.
right,
And we want to make sure that, sometime in February or March, we have these people in play
right,
so that we can get things going.
right.
The other
I
thing to
agree.
think
I agree totally with you. I have an agenda that I have in my mind for all of those things. At the moment, I'm just trying to get people to come and then we'll have a meeting and, do all that and see what's what and soon,
yeah, no,
perhaps
that's fine.
by
The
the end of
other thing
October.
to think about is with the dye testing, obviously we need to do it when the lake isn't frozen.
Correct.
So, whether are we going to try to get that done before the lake freezes?
Well, the other thing is you'd be surprised because what happens with the septic, if the septic is working and or doing that, because that area is more warm, the septic system doesn't usually freeze itself. So that dye may show up even still if it's even if it's cold and freezing.
Okay, I didn't know if we'd be
yeah.
able to track it if the lake was frozen.
It could be, it could happen because, well, it would drain into the side of the lake and that sort of thing,
Okay,
because it would come over ground first,
Gotcha.
as it leaches out. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. I know that we did some dye testing at one point for the tight tanks at the beach.
right,
Not that, many years ago, to make sure that nothing was happening there, and we were fortunate that everything was in order.
right, yeah, because
So I didn't.
tight tanks can leak, tight tanks can separate there. I mean, there was a whole group of tight tanks that were being built and being used during, like the 20 years or so that were put together and didn't stay together. So, they may still be in there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like I said, I was just concerned. I didn't know
I
if the
agree,
lake
yeah.
freezing would affect that testing timetable.
Right.
Thank you. All right, if we've talked that one out, let's move on, Jack, to dumpster regulation discussion.
It's just one note, Jack, you've probably seen, I think we may have a couple of callers on, so just want to make sure as we touch on topics, just to reach out, make sure anybody out there listening doesn't want to add to the conversation before we move on, that's all.
Good point. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Tom.
So with that, I guess I will ask, I see a couple of folks out there that are listening in. Does anyone have any commentary or thoughts, feel free to raise their hand and Jack will call on you. I'm not seeing anything, so I guess we can move on.
All right, so dumpster regs, we were talking earlier, me and Tom, about the responsibilities of the dumpsters, on whose responsibility should be in regards to deficiencies or lack of care. Should it be the residential property owner or should it be the vendor? We were talking more about it being on the responsibility of the resident. Is that correct, Tom? Come on, Tom.
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, that is correct. And rethinking since our last meeting and talking about it, and actually having a conversation with a local individual who works for a company that does dumpsters, I just really I don't know what kind of really governance we're really going to end up having by putting this on the companies, to be quite honest, versus the homeowner. I think we'd have more control with the resident than we would the company, if we're going to look to kind of have any kind of teeth in the regulations, so to speak.
Okay,
That's just my thought.
so what do you have in mind? What's your proposal?
Well, whether or not we want to consider that direction, that the responsibility of making sure that the dumps is utilized properly is the responsibility of the resident who wants the dumpster and not the dumpster company. But because I think in a lot of cases, dumpster companies are just going to come out and they're going to pick up whatever's in there. I mean, I have heard that companies can have guidelines that they can put forth to the resident when they purchase, or when they not purchase, but when they rent a dumpster. In a lot of cases, I just don't know if I can really foresee the truck driver coming to pick up a dumpster, emptying it, that they're going to really sift through and determine that what's in the dumpster is actually accurate, and have that discussion with the resident.
Well, what happens when they go to dump it, the truck driver goes to dump it up at the facility, they will be checked.
Rejecting the load.
Yeah.
Well, not
Right.
necessarily rejecting it, because there's
Well, but-
actually, what I understand, is actually an option for what they call dumping a mixed load at say like a E.L. Harvey or whatever. They actually have sections within their facility, depending on what they believe is in the load. So they actually have something called a mixed. So if the driver were to say, yeah, I have a mixture of, say, C and D and whatever, that's where they're going to dump it and actually get sorted at the facility.
Right, but they're not happy at the facility if it's tainted, let's say, with the wrong stuff.
And I wonder if that costs more to tip.
Right.
That I don't know.
I do have Lonnie with his hand raised.
Yes, I believe that if you have a mixed load, it's more, there's different rates for the different areas. So if you just have specific construction debris and you dump your load in the construction debris pile, and it is literally just construction debris, then you're fine, you pay that certain rate. If you have a mixed load of, household garbage and everything else, just like if a tractor tire rolls out, or a tire rolls out, or a couch or something rolls out that shouldn't have been in there, then you're going to see on your bill from the vendor those additional fees that get turned over to them. So they'll take pretty much, I think, anything. I mean, other than maybe nuclear waste or medical waste, but at the same time, you're going to end up with those charges on there. They're not just going to eat the charges.
And now in November, the rules are changing. They're not taking any textiles at all. They're not
Correct.
taking any
Right.
clothing, shoes, any of that stuff. So
So we think that maybe that it's pretty safe to say that the companies are already in a process of wanting to police themselves anyway.
Well, it affects their bottom line. Because they either have to, first of all, when they go to dump They may have to pay more to tip the dumpster. Then they have to try to collect that additional fee from the person that rented the dumpster. So, you know, usually when they give you a price, they give you a price for a, let's say, a 10-yard dumpster up to 2 tons, and you can have the dumpster for 7 to 10 days on your property. If it goes more than the 7 to 10 days, you could pay extra. If it goes over the 2 tons, you could be billed extra. So obviously, if the load is mixed and it costs more per ton to dump it, you would also, as the renter, be liable for that extra money. So I would say yes. I would say that the dumpster companies of today aren't what they were yesterday. They have had no choice but to get stricter with their dumpsters. And I mean, basically, a dumpster company, they're in the trucking business. They make their money by trucking. They don't make their money if there's extra expense in tipping the load. So they probably have no choice but to specify. I know guys that rent dumpsters out to a lot of roofers. The roofers aren't supposed to be putting anything in there but shingles. It's supposed to be roofing debris because they dump it, like Lonnie said, in a specific pile where it is supposed to be recycled to some extent.
Right.
So I think, you know, dumpster companies have been forced to pay attention to what they're hauling.
And make
Because-
sure that their clients know what is absolutely forbidden. You know, I think
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon them to make sure that their clients know that, and that the clients get sanctioned, so to speak, and pay the price. But
Right.
you
So
know,
I think that part will kind of take care of itself. I think the part that the Board of Health is going to be involved in is when there are complaints about dumpsters. We're going to have the ability to interact with the renter or the dumpster company or both when there are complaint dumpsters. And I'm hoping we don't have too many complaint dumpsters. But now,
right,
at least if we have a complaint, we can go back to the regulations and say, well, this is where it says that you can't do that. You're not in compliance
right.
and you need to correct it.
Lonnie?
That's really all we've created. Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of was just gonna say the same thing, that I don't know that we should be so much worried about the client vendor relationship to be policing as a more of, is there a problem with a dumpster on a site in our town, whether it's, you know, they're filling it full of crap. We do get a complaint and we can act on the complaint, but the relationship between the vendor and the you know, the homeowner, say, and the dumpster company, that's going to be between them, what is in there that's incorrect, and they should be working with each other to straighten that out. And I would tend to agree that I think we have way less problems than are out there. We've had a few people that have gone above and beyond to make it an issue, and that's why we're here at this point. And you know, the Board of Health didn't really have any way to, the biggest concern every time that I heard it, you know, especially when Missy was here, was we don't have anything to say. They can have a dumpster at their house if they want. They can have it as long as they want, right? So I think that that's probably what we're really trying to accomplish here. I think in my eyes, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to put words in you guys' mouth, but that the issue between what's in the dumpster is generally going to be between the vendor and the homeowner. And then we're there to, or the Board of Health is there to say, hey, you know, you finished that construction project 6 months ago. Why do you still have the dumpster sitting on site with flies all over the place and whatnot?
Good point.
Yeah, I think that we did do that when we were talking about the regulations. We said, well, that you could have it for 3 months and or 6 months, and then if you had to have an increase, that you would have to come back to us and pay. And I think that's what we had in our and when we did this, the regulations things when we were at the library that day,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, correct. And we're actually not gonna probably see that many fees
Right,
because we already have dumpster companies that are licensed in town on an annual basis. It's only gonna be fees from companies that don't regularly do business in town, and they have that occasional client that calls up and wants a dumpster. It allows them to buy like a one-time permit for a small amount of money, as long as they follow the regulations.
right,
And as we spoke at the library, they may find that, well, wait a minute, now I'm paying fees for 6 or 8 dumpsters. I'm better off getting an annual permit in town because I'm doing more business in town, and that's the route they will follow. So this was never designed to generate any kind of cash flow. It's purely designed so that we have something in writing that's been
so
approved.
that when things happen, go wrong,
Right,
you
and
have
I hope
something,
we don't
right.
have too many
Right,
complaints.
exactly.
You know, I hope we don't have to call
Right.
somebody up and, and say, hey, you put the dumpster and nobody can see around it to get her, from Washington Street on to 16th.
Right, and you have a
Um,
you have a C and D dumpster, and you're putting all your trash, your garbage, your other stuff in, and that's not what it's for.
Right. Not that, hey, my dumpster's getting picked up tomorrow. I got a few extra bags of trash. If they throw it in there and the dumpster company collects it, we're never going to know about it.
Right,
And most likely a bag or two of trash when the dumpster guy goes to dump it at the site might not even affect the load.
right,
Okay. But we're going to hear about it when someone complains that it's being done on a regular basis, or it's a dumpster that they never close the lids and the stuff is blowing down Emerson Street. That's when we're going to hear about it, and we can cite these regulations
right,
and the
exactly.
section. And this is why you have to comply.
Right.
You have to do something. You have to change your ways, or you're not going
Right.
to be able to have a dumpster. It wasn't designed to be too complicated. And I know when I read it section by section, it got confusing. When I read through it and took it as a whole document, it was much clearer to me. So, it gives us something to work with that we, can always go back to and modify
Right,
if we find that there was something we didn't cover, or we find, like you mentioned, Joyce, textiles aren't going to be able to be in the trash. Maybe we didn't cover that right, and we got
well,
to add
that's just,
that.
that's even in the regular trash. I mean, that's in
Right,
regular.
right. No,
trash.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah, okay, sorry.
That gives us the ability to go back and to, adjust things as the
Right.
rules and regulations of the state of Massachusetts change.
Right,
We can, make adjustments to our regulations. But unfortunately, we found having nothing kind of leaves
Right.
us with nothing.
right,
And we've never taken the side where we want to be over restrictive. But we need something to have control of the situation, so that, when we send our health inspector out there, our health inspector has something to cite.
right,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
speaking of health inspector, I think, Alan, I know at the last meeting you had made reference to the fact that you believe that the health inspector now inspects the dumpsters as part of that process?
I am making the assumption in a restaurant type situation.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
because
know
of,
in looking at the forms that they go by, I don't think that's referenced at all, that food code assessment report that it doesn't reference. So I just didn't know if that was something you knew for certain, or if it was just,
in a restaurant situation, I was making that assumption because that's a very important working part of the restaurant.
yeah,
A lot of restaurants have multiple dumpsters.
yeah,
They have one dumpster for the used oil,
yeah,
which can attract rodents and bugs. they obviously have a lot of foodstuffs from the kitchen. So I was making the assumption, which is dangerous, that in a restaurant situation, not a convenience store,
Sure.
but in a restaurant situation, that was a very important part of their inspection.
Do you
So,
know,
I mean,
Joyce,
if it's not-
Joyce, back in your day, you had, you did food and, you acted as a health inspector, right?
Yeah,
Did you
I
incorporate,
did the restaurants, yeah,
when it came to restaurants, did you incorporate dumpster inspection as part of your process?
yes,
You did, okay.
Yeah.
I did raise that question to Danielle Edmond, who was one of our health agents, and she does inspect the dumpster area when she does her on-site visits for every food inspection she does. But she does not check to see if they're licensed and mended. She just makes sure that the area is clean and that type of thing.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
So it wasn't a bad assumption.
No, it was the right
No.
assumption.
It was spot on there, Alan.
Yeah, well,
I want you to tell me who's gonna win the football game this coming weekend, all right?
I assume categories: temp, perm, residential, commercial.
Yeah, so
Well-
just wanted to solidify with the presentation of the dumpster rigs, as we have them currently drafted. It's gonna cover all these categories. So this is an across the board, irrespective of who has a dumpster, whether it's a business in play now, regardless of what they do. This is an across the board regulatory action that will affect everyone, right?
That's
Yeah,
my
I-
understanding.
yeah, me too. When we talked to, I think it was Daniel, wasn't it Daniel that was
Yes.
working with us? And we did all the changes, we did all that stuff and,
Yeah.
yeah, and we decided that would be good. And I mean, that makes sense to me.
Okay,
I don't have the document in front of me, but is that on the first sheet?
It says
temp,
commercial
perm-
residential dumpster regulations.
Okay, and temporary and permanent are defined in the definitions, correct?
I
I thought the first page had
Yes.
definitions.
Temporary is a period of time no greater than 60 days.
Right, yep. So on the next
And-
page, second page, that's Jeff, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm not seeing the word permanent as a dumpster definition.
Because a
Okay.
permanent one would be permanent. It would be like they have at the restaurants and stuff like that. So I think, I mean, I think we mostly worried about temporary.
Okay.
Correct.
Whereas
Do-
permanent is- excuse
All right.
me.
Does anybody feel as though we need to add anything to those definitions?
No,
well, I
I-
mean, if we're defining temporary, should there also be just a reference to the opposite of temporary, which would be permanent?
I have
Does it
no
matter?
problem. I don't know if it's necessary, but I
Yeah.
have no problem adding it if we feel we need to spell that out.
I mean, maybe not, maybe it's just would be kind of a given.
I mean, permanent would be anything that's not temporary. And we define temporary, right?
right.
Is that included in the definition of temporary?
Period of time no
again-
greater than 30 days.
Yeah. So again, I'm not opposed to defining that if you feel it's necessary, but you know, I don't want to add to the pages any more than necessary. I
Yeah,
know Joyce
yeah.
brought up a very good point when we started on this and she joined us. You know, keep it simple.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So you know, we were actually trying to thin it out as much as possible, so that it would be as simple as possible, but yet it would answer anyone's question.
Right. And it would take care of what we needed it to take care of.
So I guess if we got a lot of questions on that, maybe we'd have to expand, but it's already quite a few pages.
sure,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
so
think
get-
Daniel did a good job.
He
Yeah.
did.
We went along, you know, we went right along with him at that meeting too.
Jack, has that gone before the town council?
I did touch base with Kim on Monday. She said that town council does have it from last Wednesday, but has not reviewed it as of yet, but town council does have it in hand.
Okay, the wheels are turning. That's what matters. Thank you.
No. Okay, very good.
Anybody from the public like to comment on dumpster regulations? Please raise your hand. All right, I think we're good to go to number 4, new BOH forms. Jack?
Yes. Yeah, so during my time of typing out the minutes of past previous Board of Health meetings, I noticed that one of the meetings, I want to say it was last fall of last year, that it was mentioned about expired septic plans, the time frame, and the extension period. And I think it was Andy that brought it up, and Missy said, no, it's not mentioned anywhere on our permit application or the job permit card itself. So when I was typing up the minutes, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. We should have that. And this is what I've come up with. I believe I took it from Northbridge and just changed it around a bit. So I was wanting to get your ideas on this to any septic plans that come in, the property owners know the design approval phase, the installation phase, and the certificate of compliance phase. Just to keep them informed and keep the Board of Health informed about it.
So I just had one question, Jack, on this. Down at the bottom, it said there will be a total of 4 inspections done by both the design professional and the Board of Health. Board of Health does visual inspections only at this time, where the design professional will ensure that the system is being installed in accordance with the approved design plan, including component locations, blah, blah, blah. The installer is not allowed to proceed until they've heard from both the design professional engineer and the Board of Health. Once the system has been fully constructed, both the installer and the design professional will certify that the installation of the system. Now, does the Board of Health agent also inspect the final? Back when I did it, I checked the as-built and made sure that the as-built and the final thing was the same. But is that overkill?
That our agent would be Steve Donatelli, who does the on-site inspections. So I'm not too positive of what he looks at.
Right.
Would Tom Ryder look at the as-built and compare it to the plan? Being our town engineer?
He would look at it for new construction and repair or total replacement, yes.
Okay, so he would be the one. I'm thinking he would be the one that would see the as-built and be the one that would compare the as-built to the design.
Correct. That's he looks at those before he will sign off on the certificate of compliance.
Okay, so
but I'm just saying that when the as-built is put as built, somebody else that is on the Board of Health checks that before they do the plan. They check the system as built.
Okay, so you're saying an actual physical
inspection
appearance
of the thing before they cover it, that it's done, it meets all the sanctions. I mean, that's what all I'm saying is that's what I used to do.
Right. So you would actually show up when the engineering firm came to take the measurements for the as-built.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know personally if the Board of Health agent representative does that, or if they just rely on the engineered drawing of the as-built.
Right.
And I see Lonnie wants to pipe in. Maybe he can shed some light on that.
Yeah, so when we put in a septic system, we call for a bottom inspection first. I know in the past, when I believe Lenny was our health inspector, he would come and inspect. The engineer, I believe, can. But I also want to say, is it Steve Donatelli at this point?
Correct.
Okay, and then we would bury everything and then call for a top inspection before it was finally closed up. And then the engineer comes out and does their to do the as-built. But yeah, there was at least 2 inspections, I believe, when it's all prepped before we put the pipe and everything in, and then before we cover it up.
Right.
And I do believe it is Stephen Donatelli that does both inspections.
Right.
Mhm.
I just didn't see here that, I just said, once the system has been fully constructed, both the installer and the design professional will certify to the installation of the system.
Again, this is coming from Northbridge, the town of Northbridge, so
Right.
however you guys want to word it.
Well, I would just say, and the Board of Health agent. I mean, to me, that you before, they cover it, you look to see that they put the T in the D box and blah, 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 and, in the tank, put a T in the tank, and sometimes that's the favorite trick that they don't like the T's in the tanks, and so they take them out after, if they know nobody's looking or whatever.
All right, so put the word agent after the Board of Health.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the Board of Health agent, the design professional for fully constructed, both the installer and the diners will certify to the installation of the system. Yeah. I
Okay.
just add the Board of Health agent there.
Okay.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
But otherwise, I think it's a great, the whole thing is great. That makes a lot of sense. And I like the idea that everybody knows right from the front that it has to be installed in 3 years. Or else if they don't do it in 3 years, they need to, either renew or they, and that's part of the state's law.
Now, but by 3 years, you're including the potential for a 1-year extension, right?
No, 3 years, they have 3 years in which to do it. And if they don't do it in 3 years and they don't file for a
Extension?
extension within that 3-year period, at the end of the 3 years, they don't file for the year after, which they can get. Then if they don't do that and it goes on, then they have to restart all over, basically.
Oh, I thought the guideline was 2 years and then so it's actually 3 years.
Well, this
Yeah.
thing
Okay.
says 3.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that,
Title
that's what
5 is
we've
3
had.
years.
Right, straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, we've had 3 years. We just had somebody, I believe, on Northbridge Road apply for an extension because the 3 years was coming up.
Okay.
And I want to say maybe they were a little after the 3-year period. But they were having trouble getting someone in there due to the last 2 years' health conditions.
Yes,
What
this
they
is,
cite is what they
Yes.
cited.
that's exactly the
Um,
Board of Health meeting that prompted me to get this up and running.
Right. So what we did was we allowed them that 1-year extension
Mhm.
based on their presentation. But normally it's been 3 years with a 1-year extension if you apply prior to the 3 years
And, yeah,
terminating.
right.
Correct.
Tom, what you might be thinking of is, I believe if someone buys a piece of property with a system that doesn't pass Title V, if the money is escrowed, they have 2 years to complete the system.
Yeah, I was thinking about the transfer of property that where the 2 years came in. I
Right,
don't know if the escrow has any bearing either way, but I knew, so that was the
Yeah,
guideline I was thinking about.
usually the bank won't give the mortgage
Yep,
on a house that has a Title V that doesn't pass
yep,
unless somebody puts the money for the system in an escrow account.
yep.
That way
yep.
there, if the bank, if it doesn't get done and the bank has to do it, at least they're holding the cash.
Now, can you actually pass a property, a Title V, if it has a cesspool currently?
No,
So automatically, any property that comes up for sale automatically they're gonna have to put in an updated system.
See, I have a question there because I remember talking to an installer, and if the I was told that if the cesspool wasn't in failure,
Yeah.
that it could, I'll use the word conditionally pass.
Mhm.
If the cesspool was in failure, then it was done.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
had a conditional pass, the
Yeah.
cesspool was working as it was supposed to. It's supposed to work, but it won't pass Title V. You can still sell the property as long as you have a brand new design system in hand and the money put aside in escrow.
Okay.
Well, that's a different story. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, because you have to pass Title V in order to do that. You know, in order to.
Well, you're
all-
really not passing Title V, but
Well,
you have a cesspool that is functioning
But if
correctly.
you, but if you're gonna sell it, you have to have a Title V pass system. System has to pass Title V.
Okay,
Correct,
I'm a
I-
little, I'm a little
think-
confused.
No, I think Alan was asking if the cesspool on the property is functioning properly and passes Title V, then nothing needs to be done for an upgrade.
A cesspool wouldn't pass Title V.
Right, right.
So there's
So,
no,
but right, but if the cesspool isn't in failure, it can be functioning, but not pass Title V. You can still transfer the deed because you have a newly designed system and you have the money in escrow,
right, so that the buyer has to put that new system in then.
right, within a 2-year period,
Right,
which is what Tom was listing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's probably rare to have a cesspool in today's world
yeah, that passes.
that is
by the way.
functioning
Yeah, right,
between what we put down the drain as Americans
right.
and what the groundwater is like. It's highly unlikely that you would find a cesspool
That
that is
wasn't,
still
wasn't
functioning.
contaminating the groundwater.
Yeah.
Well, I believe the Board of Health is just in receipt of such a property in the last day or so.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a woman in
Which is
Milford.
where?
I'm sorry,
Where is the property?
North Ave?
Okay, I know I have a customer.
Mine's
in
brand new.
Are you sure?
What was that, Lonnie?
Yeah, Lonnie, which system are we talking about up there?
Mine's brand new.
Yeah, I have a client in Milford, house built in 1967. No town sewer in that section of Milford at the time. And she has a cesspool and it works wonderful. But you have one little old lady living in that house
Mhm.
and you have very low groundwater. But I'm sure that when it comes time for her to pass that house on to somebody,
Yeah,
that's when it's gonna have to be replaced,
Correct,
even if it's functioning.
well, I
correct.
know in this particular case, in this property, the company has submitted plans, so they are going to be putting in a new system. But
Okay,
there is currently a cesspool there, and it just recently was a sale.
yeah,
It's what I understand, it's a historical home on North
Yeah.
Ave. But they will be upgrading to a newer system.
yeah, I think I know
Yeah,
who you're
I
talking
want
about.
hopes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but as I understand it, though, the cesspool is functioning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't believe that and
Well, there was one little old man living there, if I understand correctly.
That could be correct.
Yeah, so it probably wasn't getting the use that a
use,
young couple
right.
is going to give it.
Oh, for
Right.
sure. Oh, yeah, yeah.
But and we all know that technology now,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, so I mean, it's nice that it's functioning at present because at least it's not causing any damage to the environment. And it's going to get replaced. So
Right.
that's, most likely why that sale was able to go through. Obviously, there must be a system designed and there must be money in escrow somewhere.
Well, it's
to allow
definitely,
that
like
to
I
go
said,
through.
it was designed, it's in the hands, actually, it's in Tom Ryder's hands now.
Okay,
So it just got to us like
Yeah.
yesterday, I believe.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that's a different.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I like the letter.
Yeah.
I thought it actually explained the whole process really well to someone who probably has no idea and not much interest into what is going on. So, thank you very much. Do we need to, vote on this to adopt it, or can we just say implement it?
I would say it's really an administrative, I would look at it as an administrative change
Okay.
internally. I don't know that it needs a formal vote, but I'm in
All
favor of
right,
it.
I
Yeah,
agree with
I
that.
liked it very well. I really liked it. I thought.
All
it
right,
was
Jack,
really
you've
done
been
well.
blessed.
Thank you.
Implement the form, please.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Next, we got to approve some Board of Health minutes.
No, I got one more form.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hit
No,
me.
it's all right. It was the extension request of the septic design plans.
Okay, that was the third page.
Yep, I love that too.
Yep,
'Cause that,
you're good.
you know what? That does not leave anything left unsaid.
I know
That-
that's the type of person I am. I like stuff done A to Z.
Yep, and I like that too. So there we go.
I like the fact that the word prior is bolded.
Yeah.
Well, again, that was made clear in the past BOH meetings.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I thought the whole thing was perfect, except I just thought that the Board of Health agent should do the inspection. That's the only thing I thought was.
Tom, what do you think about page 3?
I'm fine with that layout.
All right, listen, you've been blessed twice in one night. Be careful. All right, let's move on. We have to approve the Board of Health minutes from 9/29, 10/6, and 10/20. I
No,
was fine with them.
Because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm a voter on this, right?
No, but were you impressed?
I was wicked impressed. Yeah, I was like, oh my word. I read the whole thing, if you can want to believe that too.
How were you with the minutes?
I'm fine with the minutes.
All right, so I'll step down. And I will propose that we accept the meeting minutes as recorded from 9/29, 10/6, and 10/20 of 21. Tom,
I second.
all in favor?
Tom, I.
Aye. We're good.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady.
All right. Topics not reasonably anticipated. I'd like to reach out to anybody on the call if there's anything that you'd like to say before we bring up our next category. Please raise your hand. If there's something that we can help you with.
I see that Richard is here. Is it the Richard of the Roosters?
I
Yes, it
believe
would
so.
be.
Mr. Daniels Road, yes.
Is the Richard of the Roosters happy with the rooster situation?
Yes.
That's
Is
a
that
hearty
someone
yes. Excellent.
I'd like to thank the owners too for complying with instructions.
Well, we appreciate everyone's cooperation, and that is music to my ears. So I'm glad that, things are staying happy in the neighborhood.
Yep. Thank you for your help.
You're
Anytime.
very welcome.
All right, I have something in this category that I would like all the board members to know about. I don't have the timeline in front of me, but I'll do it as close as I can. At about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I received a call from Jack. The address that I had to respond to was 52 Millville Road. It's a two-family home. It appears to be a tenant-landlord dispute. When I responded to the property, the licensed contractor was there, the licensed plumber was there, and the property owner was there. So the only people missing were the boyfriend, girlfriend tenant. I believe they were informed that in order to make this plumbing bathroom repair, the bathroom was going to have to be shut down, and they should probably find a temporary place for a day or two. The tenant had called the DEP and complained about mold, possible asbestos, a mushroom that was growing out of the wall. I believe they sent pictures to the DEP. Jack has those pictures. When I responded, there was some building material, from the bathroom on the front walkway. It did appear to have a black coloring. I couldn't tell you whether it was black mold or mildew, which is very typically found in a bathroom area. I had a brief conversation with the contractors, the building contractor and the plumbing contractor. They had told me that there was, they replaced the shower valve, that they pulled out the drywall. In behind the drywall, other than the insulation, everything was in order. They installed a access panel on a wall that this, in another room or the hallway that this bathroom is in common with, so that if anybody wanted to inspect the work, they could use this access panel to inspect the work. The plumber himself had taken photos and sent those photos to the property owner. In my conversation with the property owner, who was very cooperative, it appears that there's a tenant landlord dispute going on, and they're trying to resolve it as amicably as possible. The tenant cited that some of this work went back 4 years. I guess shortly after they first moved in, there was an issue with the carpeting. The landlord pulled all the carpeting up, corrected whatever the issue was with the carpeting. So it appears as though this is something that the landlord and tenant have to work out. I was invited into the home, but my sense of smell wasn't going to help us with this situation. It also appears that the tenant has a pet cat that is most likely poorly house trained, and that may be adding to this particular issue in the bathroom area. So as far as I was concerned, as being just a Board of Health member, it appeared that everything was being addressed. Knowing the contractors are local people, if we have any questions, there'd be no problem reaching out to them, because we see them working around town all the time. So, I felt that no further action was needed from a Board of Health standpoint. I did ask the property owner to put a timeline together in bullet point form and submit it to the Board of Health, so that we have a timeline as to how the complaint was made, when the complaint was acted on, when the complaint was resolved. Only because it had got to the level where the tenant called the DEP So I'm hoping that that will be forwarded to us. The DEP also reached out to the homeowner, and the homeowner reached back to the DEP and responded to the DEP's reach out. So as far as I'm concerned, by 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the Board of Health's involvement at this particular time was in order. Again, I'm not a health inspector. I'm not a general contractor. But, you know, all the players are very easily accessible if the board has any further questions. I'm sure if we decided that we want the health agent to take a peek at the work, I'm sure we'd have no problem. Most likely it wouldn't hurt to have the health inspector put their eyes on the photos just to make sure that, you know, they don't see anything that would be, you know, an issue in the future. So that's my report on that, answering that call.
Do we know if we had sent back any kind of confirmation to DEP today, just to let them know what had been done initially, or that we did respond and further reporting details that have come?
Jack?
I have personally not responded back to the DEP agent that contacted me to let them know that Alan did go out there. I verbally told her he was on his way to the property, but not with any follow-up after that. But I
Oh,
can.
okay, that's fine. As long as they know that we were going to be there today, that's good enough.
Yeah, I did tell her that our chairman of the board was on the way to the property as I was speaking with her.
Cool. Yeah, and then we'll just follow up with a proper detailed reporting.
I did go to the office after the response to that address, and I did have Jeff. I'm sorry. I did
It's
have
all right.
Jack.
It's
I
all
did
right.
have Jack kind of take down some notes on my timeline. So if anyone felt it was necessary, we could submit that to the DEP if you felt that was appropriate. It's just a rough timeline of what I saw, who I saw, what I found out, and when I left.
No, I think it'd be good to pass along to DEP. Yeah, and then of course, at some point, you know, just kind of follow it up or to its conclusion, make sure that everything is kind of, you know, done to its satisfaction, so to speak.
Jack, Danielle is usually in Mendon on Thursday. Am I correct?
She usually is on Wednesdays or Thursdays, but this week is their soils testing exams. So
Okay.
they are unavailable for the rest of this week.
Okay. What do my board members think about maybe forwarding her the photos? Just for her to put her eyes on them?
Sure.
It's not gonna hurt,
I mean, I might not know the difference between black mold and black mildew.
but I would say that maybe it should have been tested for black mold.
Well, I think that's what the DEP seemed to get concerned about, the accusation of asbestos.
Correct.
The house was built, I believe we saw on the assessor's notes, in 1976, and was actually occupied for a number of years by the property owner. And the property owner told me that almost everything in the house other than the frame had been redone. Doors, windows, siding, roofing. So the frame was the only original thing. I remember at one point, and again, I'm not a building contractor, but there was a particular year that was sort of a asbestos benchmark, that if a
Right.
contractor responded to a particular property or was interested in a property and they saw it was built before, and I'm just throwing this number out there, 1960, they would think asbestos.
Right.
I don't know what that benchmark year is, but I believe there was some general time frame that always alerted to someone in that field as to whether or not they had to be concerned about asbestos or not. Lonnie?
I know that lead paint is after 75. I I don't know that asbestos falls into that same time frame, but I can definitely, let me see if I can look it up. I'll get back to you in a sec.
Thank you. So again, fellow board members, whatever you feel should be done in addition to what I already did, I have no problem going forward with that based on your suggestions. However, it did definitely seem to be not a Board of Health issue, but a tenant landlord issue that they need to work out amongst themselves.
Well, if I will say, if it were mold, potentially mold could be a health issue,
Agreed.
right? So, I mean, to Joyce's point, I don't know is it possible to have it validated as to what the substance was, if it indeed fell within a certain category? If only just to alleviate concerns, not only for the tenant, but also for the homeowner?
See, did they already take out all everything was taken out of the bathroom that had any kind of discoloration?
To my knowledge, yes. When I was there was a small C&D dumpster being dropped off, and they said that the work, and when I was there, was at least 50 to 75% complete.
Right,
And it was going to be either wrapped up today or tomorrow. It wasn't a long-term thing. We could see in the pictures that were submitted by the tenant to the DEP that when those pictures were taken, the tenant must have still been in the home, and it must have been during this process, because you can see all the studs.
yeah,
See that the paper on the insulation had gotten discolored in places, and that was all being torn out and replaced. But you could also see brand new blocking, brand new studs. So the pictures that she submitted to the DEP were after the work had begun, if I understand it correctly. But again, the plumber said that he had taken pictures prior to doing the work and sent them to the homeowner. So we do have access to those if we wish.
Is there any
Um,
consideration, given the state of the home now, was there any consideration for treating, or putting in a treatment? Just in case there may be potential mold that may exist that was undetected?
I would have to talk to the contractor. However, I like I said, I know the contractors that were on the job, both the building contractor and the plumbing contractor do a lot of work in town and are known to be reputable. So
Yeah, it's not a case of
No,
reputability.
but-
It's just
but
a case of taking the proper action to mitigate any potential concern for what may or may not be a health issue down the road.
yeah, I felt as though the contractors involved, that there was no question that they knew what they were doing.
Yep.
And they know a lot more than I know.
Lonnie?
I believe.
So it was banned in 77, 78. But obviously there must have still been some stuff trickling through into the early 80s. So, if you had to use a cutoff, there's no real cutoff date, but if you had to say like 1985, I think would probably be a safe bet. If you're
Wow.
looking for a year. But yeah, it wasn't banned until 78.
And that's specific to asbestos, Lonnie?
Specific to asbestos and any, so it says when asbestos stopped being used in construction, asbestos is less likely to be found in homes constructed after 1980. Stockpiles of asbestos containing materials were still on hand and being used. And it says even as late as the 90s. But I think if you had to use a reasonable cutoff, well, banned in 78, phased out. I mean, that's a lot of stock if you go from 78 to 1990.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, that's talking about it showing up in sheetrock and things like that. But if you're talking about the standard asbestos flooring, pipe wrapping, things of those nature, I think you're looking in the 70s that they stopped doing that stuff.
Right.
But if they if inspectors find even the smallest amount of asbestos, they'll shut a job down very quickly.
All right, board members. So what do you feel we should do, or how should we act beyond what's already been done and said?
Well, I would think that the contractor most likely would recognize a black mold on a heavy level, and if he's gotten rid of all of that, it won't be there. It won't come back. If there's no leaky pipes and all of that sort of stuff. So,
I would probably defer it to DEP on the
Yeah.
mold issue. I know that seems to be the asbestos was the condition, but where mold has come up in the discussion and what may or may not have been found, I would potentially defer to the contact that reached out to us about the issue and seek their advice on it.
I'm fine with that.
I don't have enough of a background to say either way, but as a homeowner, I would probably want assurances that I'm not going to have a mold problem going forward. And how do you validate, how do you make sure that that's going to happen? Do you have to apply a treatment to the areas there to make sure that it's not going to come back again? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can send an email to the homeowner, and we can inquire from the DEP what they, feel we should do further. But if we're going to test the material that was taken out of there, or we're going to ask for that material to be tested, we have to act quickly because they're wrapping this up.
Yeah, that could be another way to
the only-
validate.
Yeah, the only other thing we could do is we could reach out to the general contractor. He's not hard to find. He lives on Washington Street.
Lonnie?
I would just a note on mold expectation coming down the pike. The new building codes have tightened up the houses so much that we're starting to see mold in brand new construction almost, in some cases, almost immediately. Because the houses don't have that, they don't breathe anymore like they used to. They make them so airtight for efficiencies that it's swinging the other way a bit, and it's causing moisture to not be able to evacuate. People are you can put in air exchangers, which they want you to, then they take the outside air, they heat it or cool it depending on what time of the year it is, and then put it in the home, and you're supposed to use ventilation to then evacuate the air back out of the house. However, people are turning them off, things of that nature, so that the houses are so tight they don't breathe like they used to. You may start to see a bunch of this coming down the road. I don't know if they'll change the building code a little bit, but we are starting to see that with these HERS ratings, that they've got to be so tight that it's creating a slight issue.
I've heard that, Lonnie, for the last couple of years. I've heard that from contractors and homeowners. And I have a former insulation installer who works for me part-time, and he worked for one of those energy companies that's sponsored by the utilities. And it was very interesting to hear over the time he's been with me, the problems with having a house so tight to meet present codes. And that's a guy that works in that field every day. And some of the things and the problems that we've created. So I'll echo what you're saying, Lonnie. I've heard the same thing. We've tilted the scale too far the other direction, most likely. Thank you. So, fellow board members, Jack, do you understand what we're gonna do further on 52 Millville?
Yes, I'm gonna email the DEP contact, the email of the timeline that you have done for today. I'm also gonna request more information on what we should do about the mold issue possibility. And I'm also going to email Danielle the pictures to get her take and eyes on it. And possibly, if you guys want, have her do after the fact inspection. I don't know if she'll find anything when she is back in town for next week.
Okay, I was just thinking when we were talking about mold, if I'm not, I may be off, but I believe that you can actually purchase at like a hardware store, almost a petri dish type container that you can actually leave in a particular spot to test for mold. I believe there's I'm not saying that they're 100% accurate, but I believe there are test kits out there that you can use. I know they use one for radon when they're testing for radon when you're going to sell your house. So I believe there are some small scale testing capabilities even after a project has been completed, because obviously the
I
mold
think you're right.
the
I
mold
think
is
you're
in
right
the air.
about that. Yeah,
Okay. I'm thinking about this as we're going.
yeah, I think
So
you're right about that too.
if for some reason we can't catch the material that was taken out, we could suggest that the homeowner look into one of those test kits.
Yeah,
that
I'm
he
looking
can use.
online. I'm looking online right now, and they are test kits available for like $10 at Home Depot and Lowe's. They're called mold
Okay.
armors, mold test kits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are some things that we can suggest to the homeowner along those lines if my board members are on board with that, so to speak. That we can suggest that the homeowner follow up with for their protection and their tenants' protection.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So Jack, why don't we put something together like that after we see if we get any kind of a response from Danielle after she puts her eyes on the pictures, if she has time, and if we get any further response back from the DEP, so that way there we can include whatever feedback from those two areas along with our suggestions for the future health of the address.
Okay.
But again, from the very beginning, once I knew who all the players were, it definitely appeared to be a tenant landlord issue, and it was being addressed, so I felt good about that. Anything else, folks?
Well, if we want to look at old business items,
Sure, hit me.
just an update, Jack. We're all good to go for our flu clinic.
We are good to go for the flu clinic. It is next week. Not next week. It's on the 18th. Alan Tatro was able to put the sign out by Route 16 and North Ave, I believe. North Ave.
Yes, I saw it advertised. Yeah.
Yeah, Zabrini Circus was, so that's where the sign is to be posted. So Anne Labonte from the Milford Visiting Nurse Association, she's supposed to come in sometime this week to sit down with me and show me how to use what they call Color software system, which is the registration system, because I will be there on the 18th with the Mendon residents and registering them on the night of the flu clinic.
What was that, 5 to 7? Is that the hours?
Correct. Yep, 5 to 7.
Yeah. And then I
And,
think we had one going at the senior center as well, a separate one.
Yep, I believe that is on the 8th or the 7th. It might be the 7th in the afternoon at the senior center.
All right, so that's this Friday.
Yep. And Amy Wilson's handling that with Anne Labonte.
Great. Okay.
Anything else, folks?
I think I'm good.
All right, let's set our next meeting, please.
Okay, so 2 weeks from today would be October 19th.
Oh, my God. My My life
Yep,
is
they-
going before my eyes here.
Yeah, there goes October. Same setup with remote,
I'm
Yeah, I'm
with that.
fine with that.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, October 19th.
Okay,
Awesome.
so
Well,
moved.
everybody, yeah, thank you very much for all your hard work on all our issues. I guess we have to have a motion to adjourn.
I move
Actually,
we
just one
adjourn.
thing before we motion, I just noticed we had something in the chat from Ann Mazzarelli. Ann, I don't know if you are still on or not, but Ann just put up a notation in chat. Sorry that she missed the rooster update. Just wanted to report that all is good and thank you very much again. Ann and Jack.
Good words. Good words.
Now, Ann, if you're still there, thank you very much. All the kudos go to Joyce. She's the one that did all that extra lay work. Way to
There
go,
you go.
Joyce.
I'm good with chickens.
Yeah, send me your recipes. All right, so we're all good.
Yeah,
I think, Lonnie, you have anything else you want to add? He's good.
We
Alrighty.
he
made our
was good
motion.
before.
Yeah, we made our motion. Who seconded?
I'll second.
All right. Listen, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Good night, all.
Okay.
Have a
night.
good evening.
Night.